喺郭 Sir 佢講嘅時候咧，就中間有個影。咁另外咧，其他講者咧夾雜住有啲相嘅，咁所以大家留意啦。稍等一陣，因為佢哋要插好咗啲線先。唔好意思，稍等一陣，因為嗰啲線路有啲問題啊，咁所以搏一搏先。 歡迎大家今日嚟到我哋警方嘅記者會。咁咧，首先我會介紹一下台上嘅5位講者嘅。咁中間台上邊咧就係我哋新界北總區指揮官郭任容先生。咁而家郭 Sir 嘅左手邊，咁就係我哋警察公共關係科處理總警司江永祥先生。咁而家江 Sir 嘅左手邊，咁就係我哋行動科嘅高級警司汪威信先生。咁我哋去翻郭 Sir 嘅右手邊，咁就係刑事總部高級警司吳卓恒先生。而大家最左方，咁就係資訊系統部高級警司陳志勇先生。咁咧稍後呢幾位講者咧會先後發言嘅，跟住就會有個問題時間。咁問題時間嘅時候咧，咁啊大家如果想發問，麻煩舉一舉手，咁我哋同時會遞個咪俾你嘅。咁請你講出你來自邊個傳媒機構，咁同埋就最多係發問3題。咁跟住將個咪交翻俾我哋嘅同事。咁啊事不宜遲啦，咁我將時間交俾郭 Sir。
唔該晒，各位。過去4個月呢，暴徒嘅暴力程度不斷升級惡化，更加係蒙面作惡，變得更加野蠻兇殘，令到香港社會法治呢嚴重受損。任何人或者機構、店鋪發表嘅言論，如果唔合暴徒嘅心意呢，暴徒就用暴力解決，執行私刑，將呢啲人呢打到頭破血流，甚至呢掟汽油彈、放火燒鋪。暴徒有肆無忌憚喺多區嘅馬路上面呢設置非法路障，截查車上司機乘客嘅隨身物品，包括手機。暴徒呢啲無底線嘅行為，令到城市呢瀰漫惶恐嘅氣氛。我哋準備咗一段片，大家可以睇一睇先。
亦都有人駕駛掘地車鑽地。
蒙面人就喺太子道西近彌敦道嘅路口，用鐵欄、回收桶同埋磚等阻塞馬路，用消防球周圍射水，持續咗大約3分鐘。喺元朗，一批人破壞輕鐵大棠路站，敲爛月台上嘅設施，將木板放喺路軌上面。喺沙田馬鞍山線車站亦都被針對，沙田圍站先被闖入，幾部售票機同埋閘機被破壞。保持木棍嘅男人同群眾衝突。長沙灣政府合署對出，有的士鏟咗上行人路，一個着紅衫嘅男人被拖喺地上面圍毆。見人不滿，現場有人拉佢走，有人用鐳射筆射佢。
我哋準備咗一啲相片呢，陣間我繼續講嘅時間呢，可以俾大家睇到當時嘅情況。大家呢可以留意住個熒光幕。過去呢幾日呢，暴徒連續4日嘅破壞行動呢，對比以往呢係更加廣泛，破壞程度亦遠超從前嘅，而且非常之有組織性同埋針對性，以致多區呢受到嚴重嘅破壞嘅。暴徒喺呢段日子裏邊呢，發展到針對性咁樣破壞港鐵站、特定嘅商店、銀行，放火燒鋪、闖入食肆，令入邊嘅食客受驚痛哭。暴徒嘅行動非常之有組織、有策劃嘅行動嚟嘅。佢哋事前喺網上宣佈一個特定嘅時間，喺全港多區同一時間作出大規模破壞行為，而多次嘅事件都證明咗呢，佢哋係有組織能力將計劃實行嘅。有港鐵站、商場、店鋪都因為已經被暴徒破壞，或者驚被破壞，擔心員工嘅安全而要關閉或者提早關閉，嚴重影響市民嘅生活。由上個星期五開始，過去短短嘅4日裏邊呢，有超過200間嘅商鋪或者公共設施呢係俾暴徒破壞嘅，包括咗40個港鐵同埋輕鐵站，接近100間店鋪或者銀行，同埋一啲議員嘅辦事處同埋政府建築物，情況令人譁然。呢啲案件分別被列為刑事毀壞、縱火同埋爆竊案處理嘅。其中一宗案件裏邊嘅暴徒喺前日10月6號晚呢，破壞咗沙田一間嘅酒樓。佢哋逃走嘅時候呢，被警方截獲。我哋一共係將23人呢以涉嫌爆竊嘅罪名拘捕，亦都包括呢係非法集結嘅罪名嘅。另外呢，暴徒又用工程車喺馬路上面鑽地，打爛馬路嘅交通燈。運輸署指出呢，至少有80組嘅交通燈係受損嘅，嚴重影響道路使用者嘅安全。今朝早我哋見到呢，交通係大混亂啊，車龍處處，返學嘅學生、返工嘅市民苦不堪言。呢啲都係暴徒大肆破壞嘅結果。更加令人髮指嘅係有暴徒喺馬路上非法截停路上嘅車輛，強行檢查司機、乘客嘅隨身物品、手機。佢哋表明呢，截車係要抽出一啲休班嘅警務人員，或者係持相反意見嘅市民。警方嚴正指出呢，上述呢啲公然侵犯市民嘅行為係有機會干犯遊蕩罪、非法集結罪、刑事恐嚇等等嘅，甚至乎更加嚴重嘅罪行。一經定罪呢，遊蕩罪最高嘅罰則係可判2年監禁，其餘2條嘅罪名最高可判5年嘅監禁。警方已經加強路面巡邏，並喺過去呢幾日呢，係至少喺5個地方，包括屯門、元朗、荃灣、將軍澳同埋東區，打擊呢啲非法路障。並且呢，拘捕咗19人，包括17男2女，年齡介乎13至到32歲，涉嫌非法集結、身處非法集結時使用遮面用品、藏有攻擊性武器、阻止警務人員執行職務等等嘅罪名。對於任何漠視法紀嘅行為，警方呢係會考慮以任何可行嘅方式打擊呢啲行為。警方呼籲呢，市民如果喺駕駛期間遇上或者喺道路上見到懷疑違法嘅路障，請立即致電999報案，警方會即時派員處理。 另外呢，暴徒又喺過去幾日呢繼續瘋狂襲擊市民，似乎係唔理受害人嘅死活。喺過去呢幾日，分別喺旺角、深水埗等嘅地區都有暴徒圍毆市民，多名嘅受害人呢係血流披面。其中喺深水埗區發生一宗交通事故之後呢，一名的士司機被蒙面嘅暴徒拖離車廂，毆打至頭破血流、昏迷倒地。無論之前有任何糾紛發生咩事，文明嘅人呢都應該識得以文明方法去解決。香港嘅法律呢係唔容許執行私刑嘅。警方亦都嚴正指出呢，如果暴徒圍毆市民、打死咗人，呢個唔單止係暴動罪，嚴重嘅可以係謀殺罪。另外，針對警察嘅手法似乎係要攞命嘅，過程裏邊亦都令警務人員同埋無辜嘅人受傷。喺10月6號嘅下晝，警方喺灣仔軒尼詩道驅散暴徒嘅期間，暴徒不斷向警察嘅防線投擲汽油彈，附近有2名記者不幸被掟中，更有記者呢嘅頭部係一度着火嘅。喺10月4號晚，元朗區有批蒙面嘅暴徒圍毆冇防護頭盔、冇裝備嘅便衣警員，打到佢瞓低喺地都冇停手嘅。過往例如好似喺10月1號荃灣大河道嘅開槍事件裏邊呢，喺警員開槍之後呢，暴徒係會散開。但係喺10月4號元朗區嘅事件中，即使警察已經開咗槍，暴徒都冇理會，亦冇停止攻擊佢。之後暴徒稍為後退，我哋就見到另外有暴徒呢向佢掟汽油彈。呢個情況不禁令人質疑，呢個係一個有預謀嘅襲擊。而當時警員全身係陷入火海，好彩同時呢係企得翻起身，走得快。而家係冇咩大礙，但係佢走避嘅時候呢，手腳都仍然係着火嘅。暴徒甚至係試圖衝前搶去警員跌咗喺地嘅配槍，幸好警員呢係保持警覺，及時制止。但係亦都有人趁警員要求增援嘅時間呢，向佢掟第2個汽油彈，令佢腳部着火。暴徒向警務人員發動致命嘅襲擊，公然挑戰法治，完全超越文明社會嘅底線，全個社會都應該齊聲譴責。接住落嚟，我交俾江 Sir 講一講過去數日行動嘅數字。
係，唔該，郭 Sir。咁首先呢，我同大家講一講由行動至今嘅拘捕數字。由6月初行動至今為止，警方一共拘捕2363人，包括1847名男子同埋516名女子，年齡介乎12至83歲。涉嫌嘅罪行包括非法集結、暴動、藏有攻擊性武器、藏有工具可作非法用途、阻差辦公、刑事毀壞、襲警、身處非法集結時使用蒙面物品，同埋沒有遵從要求除去蒙面物品等等。而喺過去呢個長週末，由10月4號至10月7號，警方一共拘捕241人，包括170名男子、71名女子，年齡介乎12至54歲。 涉嫌非法集結、藏有攻擊性武器、身處非法集結時使用蒙面物品，同埋沒有遵從要求除去蒙面物品罪等等。而由禁止蒙面規例實施至今，警方一共拘捕77人，係有關禁止蒙面規例裏邊嘅罪行，包括50男同埋27女，年齡介乎12至41歲，其中74人係涉嫌身處非法集結時使用蒙面用品，而另外3人係因為唔合作，喺警方截查嘅時候拒絕除去遮擋面容嘅物品，於是乎被拘捕，涉嫌沒有遵從要求除去蒙面物品罪被拘捕。法庭案件方面，有1名男子同1名女子喺10月5日星期六嘅凌晨喺藍田一帶堵路，並帶上一啲嘅蒙面物品。2人最後被拘捕非法集結同埋身處非法集結時使用蒙面物品罪。案件已經喺10月7號星期一喺東區法院提堂，而喺10月6號星期日，警方喺灣仔軒尼詩道近鵝頸橋地方進行驅散行動嘅時候，一共拘捕咗36人，包括18男、18女，年齡介乎12至33歲，而當中嘅14男、12女已被暫控參與暴動罪。而另外呢，仲有14人呢被加控一項身處非法集結時使用蒙面物品罪。案件亦都已經喺今日下晝喺西九龍裁判法院提堂。因為行動而受傷嘅數字，截至琴日嘅行動為止，我哋警方喺呢個週末假期總共有14名警務人員因行動而受傷，包括10月4號晚1名嘅便衣警員喺元朗執勤嘅時候被示威者圍毆同埋用汽油彈襲擊，人員嘅左前額、後腦、右肋骨同埋背部多處受傷。而喺10月7號晚上，有1名嘅警員喺將軍澳驅散示威者期間，被人從高處投擲一部單車，擊中頭部，受傷倒地。呢名警員嘅頭部同埋頸部受重創。使用彈藥方面，10月4號星期五，警方共使用催淚彈175發、橡膠彈60發、布袋彈14發同埋海綿彈22發。而10月5號星期六，我哋並冇使用任何彈藥。10月6日星期日，警方共使用催淚彈134發、橡膠彈30發同埋海綿彈5發。而喺10月7號星期一，我哋共使用催淚彈58發、橡膠彈16發、布袋彈1發同埋海綿彈3發。頭先阿郭 Sir 都提及過，暴徒襲擊警察嘅手法已經係越嚟越暴力，根本係想攞我哋同事嘅命。除咗圍毆同埋掟汽油彈之外，我想講一講一宗喺10月7號晚上大約晚上大概9點鐘左右，當時我哋嘅同事喺將軍澳唐德街進行驅散行動，突然間由高處有人投擲一部單車落嚟，擊中咗我哋一名警員嘅頭部，同時我哋呢名警員即時跌低咗，而頭部同埋頸部呢都受到重創，已經被送去醫院治療。另外呢，我哋必須指出，暴徒喺多區除咗大規模咁破壞商店、銀行等等，亦都有執行私刑，圍毆一啲意見唔同嘅人。而部分嘅受害嘅商戶同埋傷者表示，過程中佢哋係有財物俾人偷咗嘅，包括 有暴徒喺破壞一間商店之後，將裏邊嘅一啲電子產品，包括手提電話同埋平板電腦攞走咗。商鋪點算後發現有貨物不翼而飛。而另外喺10月6號晏晝，有一名男子就被暴徒因為意見嘅問題，就拖出車外就圍毆，打至頭破血流。而之後佢亦都點算係有一啲個人財物，包括現金同埋一啲貴重物品呢，就俾人偷咗。呢啲根本唔係一啲爭取訴求嘅行為，完全係一啲鼠竊狗偷、趁火打劫嘅行為。我哋警方必定會嚴正調查呢啲案件。而另外，我亦都留意到呢幾日喺網上有一啲嘅片段，就話喺一個馬鞍山嘅商場入面，有保安員擋住個門口，唔俾警察入來。呢件事件亦都引起咗好多人唔同嘅討論。事實上，我喺度作出一個澄清。喺琴日嘅晚上8點鐘左右，警方係接報指馬鞍山新港城商場裏邊有店鋪被人破壞，亦有連接商場同埋亦有連接同商場連接嘅馬鞍山港鐵站嘅設施俾人破壞。於是乎，我哋嘅同事接報到場，而過程中需要穿過商場先可以去到嗰啲被破壞嘅地方，但係好可惜，俾保安員阻止。我哋嘅同事多次解釋，因為裏邊有罪案發生，所以要入內處理，但係遭到保安員拒絕。最後我哋同事只能夠推開商場嘅門口，進入商場處理事件。而當時商場裏邊係有超過30人喺裏邊聚集，亦都不停咁叫囂，同埋用雷射光線射向我哋嘅同事。咁而我哋同事上前追截期間呢，喺過程中呢，就有一名嘅記者就係站咗喺個路中心，於是乎我哋同事呢，就撞到呢名記者，而之後呢，我哋亦都有扶翻起佢嘅。我諗喺我哋執行職務嘅時候撞到佢哋呢，我哋都係感到唔好意思嘅。咁但係我亦都要喺度重申啦，當我哋同事係有一啲嘅事件要處理嘅時候呢，好多時亦都未必顧及得咁多。咁可能呢，就記者喺工作嘅期間呢，都要多加留意。而另外呢，喺有關進入商場嘅情況呢，
我諗而家未係問題時間
必須指出，警方呢，當時係有必要行使法律賦予我哋嘅權力去處理喺商場裏邊嘅事件嘅。我相信喺香港，大家都唔希望見到係有一啲地方呢，係有罪案發生嘅時候呢，係犯罪嘅人係可以當係一個避風港嘅地方出現嘅。而我哋係因應香港法例第232章警隊條例第50條裏邊賦予我哋嘅權利。如果我哋當時係有理由相信嗰個地方係有人干犯咗罪行，而我哋需要拘捕嘅話呢，其實我哋係唔需要攞任何手令，亦都可以進入嗰個地方去處理事件嘅。咁跟住落嚟嘅時間，我交俾阿吳 Sir 去講講有關禁止蒙面規例嘅一啲內容。
好，大家好。我會簡介一下呢個禁止蒙面規例，並講一講呢警方呢就住呢個新規例一啲嘅執法嘅原則嘅。禁止蒙面規例呢已經喺過去嘅星期六，即係10月5號呢就開始生效啦。咁而訂立新法例嘅目的呢，主要都有兩個。第一就係有鑑於近期嘅公眾活動呢，往往就變為暴力嘅事件啦。咁呢個新法例呢個目的就係去阻嚇一啲企圖喺蒙面之後作出一啲暴力或者犯法嘅人士嘅。而第二個目的就係協助警方更加有效去調查罪案同埋搜集證據，將犯罪者繩之於法嘅。警方呢對於一切能夠協助警方維持治安、防止及偵查罪案嘅法例同埋措施呢，都表示歡迎嘅。咁而呢個禁止蒙面規例呢，其實只有五頁嘅啫。咁係一個比較短嘅條文，只要得5條嘅條文。咁從有關條文嘅釋義呢，我哋可以睇到新法例主要呢都喺原有嘅公安條例，即係香港法例第245條之下呢，係一啲受規管嘅公眾活動。 加以一啲禁止蒙面嘅規例限制嘅。整條法例咧，實際上咧，其實增加咗得2個罪行嘅啫。咁第一就係根據規例嘅第3條咧，就係禁止任何人身處咩地方咧？第一類咧就係啲非法嘅場合，包括就係非法集結啦。咁非法集結係咩咧？就係公安條例嘅18條裏邊講到就話3個人或以上嘅聚集，而佢嘅行為咧可能引致其他人驚或者促使其他人咧破壞社會安寧嘅。咁而第二個非法嘅情況咧，就係一個未經批准嘅集結。咁呢個就係公安條例裏邊嘅17A2條。咁啊有兩大款嘅。咁第一就係話多過50人嘅公眾集會，或者多過30人嘅公眾遊行，而警務處處長咧係冇事先收到通知，或者處長已經禁止或者反對有關嘅遊行或者集結嘅。咁而第二咧就係3個人或者多於3個人嘅集會、遊行或者聚集，而佢哋咧係拒絕遵從警方根據公安條例發出嘅命令嘅。咁除咗非法之外咧，有2個就係現時法例都係一個規管嘅行為嘅。第一就係須通知嘅公眾集會，即係多過50人，而警務處事先收到有關嘅通知而唔禁止嘅集會啦。第二就係多過30人嘅遊行，而警務處亦都收到通知冇反對嘅。咁除咗呢2條例之除咗呢4個情況之下咧，咁其實頭先所講嘅情況都係公安條例裏面包到嘅啦。咁而第二有啲咩情況係唔包括嘅咧？即係話幾時先會唔會犯法咧？第一就譬如果個公眾身處一個冇公眾集會或者遊行進行嘅地方咧，就唔會犯法啦。第二就係如果我得2個人嘅集會或者遊行就唔算犯法啦。第三，如果我身處一個人數50人或者唔足50人嘅公眾集會，或者人數唔多過30人嘅公眾遊行咧，而咧呢個集會遊行係和平嘅，而參與嘅人士咧亦都服從警方嘅命令，咁呢個都唔會犯法嘅。而最後咧，法例喺第4條咧都有寫到就話，如果有一個合法權限或者合理辯護嘅話咧，咁都係唔屬於犯法嘅。咁而第2個罪行咧，想講就係根據條例嘅第5條，就係警方咧有權喺呢個公眾地方就要求佩戴，就係相當可能阻止識別身份嘅一啲蒙面嘅物品嘅。咁至於呢啲係咩？其實法例上都有個定義㗎啦，咁我唔重複啦。咁警方可以要求有權咧，要求人士咧係喺公眾地方除去呢啲蒙面物品。咁個目的咧，純粹係以便警方去核實呢個人嘅身份。而即係話，如果我喺公眾地方咧戴蒙面咧，係唔會犯法嘅。只係如果你唔遵從警方嘅要求，先至會干預呢個罪行嘅啫。咁而最高嘅呢個罪行最高嘅監禁咧就係6個月同埋罰款1萬元嘅。咁其實本來現行嘅法例咧，即係包括警隊條例啊、入境條例、公安條例咧，都已經授權警方咧進行一啲截查同埋檢查身份證嘅權力㗎啦。咁新嘅規則咧，只係希望喺呢方面更加清晰，令到警方執法咧就更加順利，亦都希望咧起到更大嘅阻嚇作用嘅。咁喺呢度我強調或者澄清一點啦，就係綜合咗呢個規例嘅第3條同埋第5條嘅話咧，如果喺公眾地方佩戴呢個蒙面物品啦，或者口罩啦，咁係唔會觸犯法例嘅。而規例咧禁止嘅咧，最主要係受規管嘅公眾活動嘅時候戴口罩啦，或者蒙面啦。因此咧，市民如果外出純粹戴住或者戴住一個口罩咧，就唔會觸犯法例嘅。只要當警方要求嘅時候，咁人士可以暫時除去呢個口罩或者蒙面物品去核實身份。咁之後咧，其實如果你已經確認咗你嘅身份之後咧，咁就可以戴翻㗎啦。咁原則上咧，法例最終嘅詮釋權當然係喺法庭啦。咁當然新法例嘅推出咧，其實都係啱即係4日都唔夠。咁公眾對呢個條文咧可能會有啲疑問啊，或者喺唔同嘅法律工作者咧都會有啲唔同表達咗佢哋嘅意見。咁警方咧會喺法例實施嘅初期咧，即係而家呢個階段咧，希望借呢個記者會嘅平台啦，盡力咧向公眾去解釋警方嘅做法，去釋除啲疑慮嘅。而我哋亦都會留意前線同事執法嘅情況啦，喺合適嘅時候咧作出一啲整合，或者推出啲清晰啲嘅內部嘅指引啊，同埋加強嘅發電咁樣。咁至於市民或者傳媒咧係關心新法例實施之後咧，由於 究竟個成效大唔大呢？其實即係今朝特首都講過，其實而家都係幾日，咁我諗都係言之尚早啦。咁警方會根據新法例咧專業地執法嘅。咁以下呢，我都會再講講喺過去週末執法嘅時候呢，或者警方亦都留意網上有人表達對以下法例有啲疑問嘅。咁嘗試係從一個原則性去講解一下啦。咁但係如果涉及一啲個別嘅個案嘅情況呢，因為考慮因素會太多，咁未必能夠一一去評論嘅。咁第一就關於呢個記者呢個所謂豁免權啊，或者一啲義務救傷隊嘅豁免權。咁喺規例嘅第4條呢，呢個免責辯護當中呢，咁條文亦都講明啦。如果係從事某一個專業又或者受僱嘅工作，而當時係身處一個公眾活動嘅話呢，而個目的呢係為自身嘅安全而使用呢啲蒙面嘅物品呢，係一個合理嘅辯解嚟嘅。咁而記者因為要採訪公眾嘅活動情況啦，喺政府之前嘅解説亦都提及過啦，應該符合條文嘅內容。咁而實際執行方面呢，情況呢，類似警方喺喺一個非法嘅公眾活動執法情況都係一樣。咁其實都實際都要綜合翻當時唔同嘅因素啊，包括人士嘅衣着啊、身上有冇嘅物品啊、裝備啊，或者佢嘅較早前嘅行為係點樣。咁查問同埋佢查問佢嘅時候佢嘅講法啦，有冇相關嘅證明等等。咁要去判斷現場人士嘅身份呢，無論係記者、救護或者協助救護嘅人士，或者剛巧路過嘅人士嘅，或者究竟佢係定係參與緊一個非法嘅活動呢，咁都要按當時實際嘅情況，咁去作出唔同程度嘅查問嘅，咁從而決定呢當地涉事人呢有冇一個合理嘅辯解嘅。咁我講解係咁多，或者我哋未完，我轉頭先。好，我盡快。最後
我諗我哋自己，我哋個記者會有個撚單，咁等一等阿 Sir 講埋先啦嘛。
陣間係咪會俾翻足夠時間俾記者問翻？
我哋會有安排啦嘛，麻煩唔好打斷我哋嘅記者會啊嘛。
好，咁
講完我先問，我冇打斷你。
咁啊，過去4個月啦，香港出現動盪不安嘅情況啦，暴力事件不斷升級啦。喺9月10日嘅時間呢，警方透過社交媒體平台咧，讓市民提供相關嘅情報嘅，以協助警方預防同埋偵查罪案。咁熱線喺開通數日之後呢，警方已經收到大量嘅資料啦，同埋錄像。咁呢啲信息呢，係有利於警方制定止暴制亂嘅措施嘅，亦都確實反映咗市民呢十分之渴望呢社會能夠回復應有嘅秩序。咁亦都喺唔同嘅渠道呢，警方亦都收到市民呢要求有一個非緊急嘅熱線呢，可以提供資料俾警方嘅。咁警方喺今日10月8號啦，就會重新推出一個多平台嘅報料熱線啦。咁係新增一個熱線嘅號碼嘅。咁我哋新用嘅呢個號碼呢，就會係53333103。咁如果係市民係去透過Line WeChat 去搜查我哋嘅時間呢，係可以搜查個電話號碼咧+85253333103，又或者用佢嘅 ID 就 HKPF 就係跟住53333103。此外咧，市民亦都可以咧透過警方專設嘅電郵咧 hotline@police.gov.hk 報料嘅。咁當警方咧係選擇呢啲唔同嘅社交媒體嘅時間咧，係以我哋香港市民常用嘅平台作為基礎嘅，包括以上3個平台啦。咁另外一個之前用過嘅平台咧，由於嘅呢個公司咧係唔同意我哋使用咧，喺是次嘅重新推出嘅平台裏邊咧，將唔會包括之前使用嘅 WhatsApp 嘅。咁另外咧，為咗減少自動化嘅信息咧，是次嘅新增社交平台亦都將會不會用自動化嘅回覆。咁此次嘅熱線咧同埋電郵咧並不適用於一般報案。如果需要報案咧，就請到就近嘅警署啦，或者致電999啊。警方咧會處理市民嘅個人資料嘅時間咧，會嚴格遵守咧個人資料私隱嘅條例啦，既有嘅程序，亦都不會咧向第三者提供資料嘅。一般取得嘅資料咧會用作偵查同埋防止罪案啦。警方咧亦都將會按收集資料嘅目的同埋所需嘅保留時間咧，係保留個人嘅資料嘅。當喺冇相關嘅目的使用嘅資料時間咧，除非係符合其他嘅法例要求保留之外咧，該等嘅資料咧係將會喺合理時間裏邊銷毀嘅。警方咧亦都重申咧，我哋唔會不斷咧開拓唔同嘅社交媒體去收集市民嘅信息同埋意見啦。止暴制亂，相信咧奉公守法嘅市民咧都會支持我哋警隊，幫助我哋香港咧重回正軌，恢復法治嘅。以上嘅資料咧亦都可以去我哋警隊公眾嘅網頁去瀏覽。咁現在咧，我交翻個時間俾阿郭 Sir。 好，唔該晒。我會總結一下先。喺過去4個月，暴徒嘅行為越演越烈，變得更加野蠻兇殘，令香港社會法治嚴重受損。而被捕嘅人呢，更加有唔少呢係學生、年青人，甚至老師，實在呢令人擔心香港嘅未來。我哋警方必須指出，即使社會狀態或者政策幾咁唔合暴徒心意，亦都唔可以罔顧法紀。暴徒口口聲聲話係為民主、為自由，但係就將持唔同意見嘅市民、負責維持法紀嘅警察打到血流披面，用暴力去踐踏我哋珍而重之嘅言論自由。請問，凡是利用暴力嘅暴徒，憑乜嘢仲可以話自己做緊嘅嘢係正義嘅呢？由6月開始，每個星期嘅暴力程度都不斷上升。再咁落去，事件會發展到咩地步呢？到目前為止，已經有2個人中槍，有記者、警務人員被火燒。再咁落去，會唔會有人遭受更嚴重嘅傷害呢？我同成個社會都一樣，實在好希望，好唔希望有任何人會因為呢事件而賠上性命。下一步我哋應該點樣走落去呢？警方喺呢度呼籲，如果有任何人遇到任何暴力事件，特別係有無辜市民被暴徒圍毆，請現場嘅目擊者，包括前線嘅記者、醫療團隊嘅成員，盡快報案，提供準確嘅地點，等警方可以趕往現場拯救傷者。我懇請社會各界盡一切嘅努力，發揮各人嘅力量，協助警隊停止呢場失控嘅亂局。Hong Kong has entered its 18th week of social unrest with widespread rioting. Riotous level of violence has been escalating without showing any sign of abating from week to week and has reached a very critical level. Masked rioters wreaked havoc across the city and resorted to atrocious acts like wrecking public buildings, damaging and disrupting transport facilities, setting buildings on fire, hurling petrol bombs at police officers and into crowds, and worst of all, attacking innocent citizens holding dissenting views. There are organized groups of masked rioters going around the city to inflict deliberate violence and commit an array of lawless acts. Such ruthless and reckless acts are pushing the rule of law to the brink of total collapse. Here I would like to talk about several alarming observations during the weekend. Firstly, we saw a sharp escalation in vandalism and property destruction. Rioters targeted many retail shops and restaurants, inflicting extensive damage. There are also reports of looting of a mobile phone store. They also wrecked as many as 80 sets of traffic lights on roads and smashed up facilities in numerous MTR stations, leading to a total shutdown of the MTR system. In total, we have recorded 213 cases of vandalism of shops, MTR facilities, public properties and buildings in just 4 days. Secondly, some rioters set up barricades and intercepted passing vehicles on main roads at various locations like Tuen Mun, Tseung Kwan O, and Wong Tai Sin. These illegal roadblocks pose a great danger to road users, and anyone taking part are liable to offences like unlawful assembly, and loitering, carrying a penalty of 5 years and 2 years of imprisonment, respectively. They may also be liable to criminal intimidation, carrying a penalty of 5 years imprisonment. During our operations, we have arrested 19 people aged 13 to 30 years old, and we'll step up effort to target illegal roadblocks. Thirdly, we are alarmed by a number of cases where rioters viciously beat up people with different views to theirs in districts like Mong Kok and Sham Shui Po, leaving them unconscious with life-threatening injuries. Please do not underestimate the gravity of this development. If the victims of such horrific attacks die from their injuries, all the offenders are liable to prosecution for murder. Fourthly, rioters continue to launch brutal attacks on police officers, and in some cases, even showing intent to murder our officers. In one open-fire incident in Yuen Long on Friday night, one CID officer was dragged out of his car, pushed to the ground, and viciously beaten up by a masked mob with weapons. When his life was in grave danger, he fired a shot in an attempt to disperse the rioters. Despite the shot being fired, the rioters continued the savage attacks, hitting him with petrol bombs and even attempting to snatch his revolver, which was dropped on the ground. These are murderous acts that no civilized society could or should tolerate. Now I'll give you a brief update on the arrest figures over the weekend. Between the 4th and the 7th of October, we have arrested 241 people, consisting of 170 males and 71 females, aged between 12 and 54 years. Offences include unlawful assembly, possession of offensive weapon, using facial covering at an unlawful assembly, and failing to comply with the requirement to remove facial covering in a public place. Since the prohibition on face covering regulation came into effect on Saturday, up to this morning we have arrested 77 people, consisting of 50 males and 27 females, aged between 12 and 41 years old. Amongst them, 74 people were arrested for using facial covering at an unlawful assembly, while the remaining 3 were arrested for failing to comply with the requirement to remove facial covering in a public place. In conclusion, over the past 4 months, we have seen an increase in the intensity and extensiveness of violence used by rioters. The violence has intensified with more dangerous weapons and tactics being used, and the atrocity has extended to many different districts in Hong Kong, affecting the livelihoods of most of our law-abiding citizens. We are deeply concerned by the spreading of lawlessness in Hong Kong by rioters who subscribe to the idea that breaking the law to achieve their so-called democratic goals is a noble one. That cannot be true. We sincerely appeal to every member of the public and professional entities to do the right thing, to do whatever is within their power and ability to help the police to stop this madness. 我將以下時間交翻俾阿。
Can you give an English remarks about the incident regarding the mall because you just did in Chinese?
我諗問題未開始，你等一陣啊嘛，等陣，
They say it in Chinese.
等陣做人化嘛。咁而家問題就係開始，我哋慢慢舉手啊嘛。Now TV。
喂，聽唔聽到？係你好 Now 新聞台嘅。其實咧就係喺灣仔軒尼詩道即係驅散行動嘅時候咧，就有前線嘅警員咧就係要求在場嘅記者咧係除低嗰個防毒面具，而當時在場咧其實就係啱啱發射咗催淚彈，無奈啲空氣咧仍然係好刺鼻嘅。咁除咗要求之外咧，其實有報道都話咧係有一啲前線警員咧，甚至係親手扯甩咗幾位記者嘅面罩。想問究竟係咪前線嘅警員唔熟悉新嗰個禁蒙面法嘅豁免條例咧？其實照計記者同埋警員應該係同一條嘅豁免條款下，都係屬於係受僱嗰種合法權限。如果我哋要除嘅前線警員係咪都應該要除低個面罩咧？可唔可以承諾其實唔好咁樣即係扯甩前線記者嘅面罩，同埋會唔會向被扯甩面罩嘅記者去道歉咧？另外咧就係想問翻咧，其實本台咧之前即係有關於荃灣大河道嘅開槍事件啦。咁本台咧其實就係影到啦，係槍傷咗嗰位嘅中五學生啦。其實槍傷之後咧，就有另一位警員咧喺附近咧執起咗另一支比較深色嘅鐵枝，就唔係原本拎住嗰支白色嘅鐵枝嚟嘅，即係你哋所講嘅鐵枝啦。咁咧就揸住咗之後咧，就放喺佢附近。另外有另一位同事咧，就將屬於嗰位中槍嘅人嘅浮板等等屬於佢嘅物體咧，就拎俾嗰位執起咗鐵枝嘅同事。咁而本身嗰個男仔拎住嘅白色鐵枝咧，就仍然放咗喺地下，就冇俾你哋嘅同事拎住嘅，或者冇影到你哋嘅同事拎起咗。想問其實警方係咪想插贓嫁禍咧？唔該。
係，咁咧今日就會由我去安排回答問題嘅人手嘅。咁啊，首先第一條咧，有關呢一個嘅要求記者喺個行動當中去除呢個面罩咧，我會交俾阿吳 Sir 去回答啦。咁跟住咧，我就會再去解答翻有關荃灣大河道嗰個開槍嘅事件嘅一啲嘅問題嘅。咁我時間交俾阿吳 Sir 先。
好，唔該，江 Sir。咁頭先都講解過啦，其實喺即係法例上就有一個叫做免責辯護啦。咁頭先我都即係講解過，都唔再詳細去講啲字眼啦咁樣。咁我諗亦都想提翻就係其實頭先都講過就係話，其實條例都係新實施啦，咁可能會需要一啲時間係去磨合嘅咁樣。咁對於條例本身咧，其實就相對地係短，亦都係一啲現有嘅法例，相信同事去明白當中嘅內容咧，亦都唔困難嘅。咁但係亦都係因為時間性嘅問題，啱啱實施咗即係4日都唔夠啦。咁我希望就俾多啲同事，即係俾多啲時間，大家互相磨合啦。咁亦都收到大家即係記者嘅關注啦。咁至於你話當時係咪一定話即係法例就冇話寫明邊個呢個職業或者咩一定係去獲呢個豁免嘅？佢係講翻當時如果你係有一個合理嘅辯解，咁你就呢個就即係記者可能當時做翻係其中一個可以免責嘅辯護啦。咁但係好視乎當時嗰個即係唔可以話如果一個人自稱話記者嘅話，佢就可以完全唔受監管。最主要唔好意思，俾時間，我會解釋嘅。我會盡量解釋嘅。OK。咁即係話，如果最緊要咧，視乎當時嗰個人嘅行為係啲咩啦？佢嘅行為係啲咩啦？如果個行為佢係做翻一啲記者嘅活動，記者
我諗等阿 Sir 答完先嘛。如果大家你一言我一語咁樣咧，阿 Sir 係冇辦法繼續落去噶嘛。
好，我盡量嘗試回答啊。咁即係話，如果當時呢個人士係做緊一啲合乎記者工作身份做嘅嘢咧，咁應該係會被豁免嘅。咁法例都係咁寫，亦都係譬如如果當時燒緊煙，咁亦都冇理由即係需要我一定要隨大家去豁免。咁但係嗱，我亦都講啦，我會補充翻，如果
我諗咁樣啦，等阿 Sir 答埋先啊嘛。如果咁樣，阿 Sir 冇辦法繼續落去。
係咯，咁我諗嗱都即係聽到大家嘅意見嘅，咁亦都會我都即係除咗聽大家意見之外咧，咁個法例都新，我都會需要聽翻同事喺執行上有冇遇到啲咩困難。咁有需要嘅時候咧，我哋一定要向翻即係前線嘅同事咧，可能會俾翻多啲指引佢哋啊，或者甚至做多啲訓練。咁希望就住喺而家呢個磨合期，大家去俾啲時間咁樣嘅。我只係講而家喺呢個即係磨合期，即係大家希望可以互相配合咁樣咯。
鐘頭後嘅事，我哋落去就做嘢。你同事佢要求我哋掹口罩，佢跟住攞住支胡椒噴霧對住我哋，咁我哋應該可以點做？可以提出乜嘢嘅合法辯解？而你同事唔會噴我哋，係我哋可以安全咁樣繼續做我哋採訪工作。
我諗咁樣啦，立場新聞嘅記者，如果咁樣落咧，頭先而家係 K 寶問緊嘅，K 寶問緊嘅立場新聞，唔該你等一陣，呢個係有個規矩嘅，係咪先？麻煩阿 Sir 可以繼續答翻 K 寶嘅問題啊嘛。
係啦，咁所以即係我頭先都講就即係尤其是係我諗咁講咧，即係大家而家呢個比較非常一個時期咧，咁我諗係需要即係大家去盡量去配合，去希望去共同去即係解決一事件嘅。咁如果我哋覺得
完成撈我哋問題好嗎？立場新聞
亦都係需要俾啲時間。我亦都希望大家俾啲時間我。
好認真問。
我都好認真答緊你嘅問題。
要我哋掹走，我哋係咪現場要掹走？你話係我就掹，冇問題。但我唔想俾胡椒噴霧噴到一就係咁簡單，唔該唔想。
嗱，我只係可以講到即係喺法例上大約個程序係點樣樣。咁至於執行上頭先都講過就係話而家真係一個好短嘅時間，亦都希望大家俾多少少時間，大家去準備咁樣嘅。
我諗咁樣啦，阿 Sir 可以繼續答啦。唔該晒，江 Sir。
即係應該點做？會道歉。其實當時我自己都在場，我哋執行即係我哋當時嘅行為咧，其實就係埋去影緊你啲同事，就係制服咗軒尼詩道一啲示威者。咁呢一個絕對係記者應有行為，我諗你都係同意啦。而且我哋咧身上都係有着住反光衣，有佩戴我哋嘅記者證嘅。咁想問下，其實你都話啦，個法例唔能明白啦。究竟前線係基於咩準則要求有晒呢啲條件嘅記者要除低嗰個面罩咧，同埋係要咁樣扯甩人咧？可唔可以即係願唔願意向當時在場嘅記者道歉？同埋你哋係咪會唔會承認係你哋對前線即係之前嗰個指引其實係唔足夠咧？究竟我哋而家再落去啦，又有同事要求我哋要除面罩，究竟我哋要點樣做咧？唔該。
多謝你。
我諗不如等我補充啦。係啦，我諗有關喺個行動裏邊嘅記者處理方面啦，咁我作為呢個公共關係科嘅長官啦，係啦，咁或者我喺度可以解釋一下啦。咁我諗我哋都要承認，就係過去呢4個月裏邊情況係越嚟越混亂啦。咁而當中喺我哋頭先好似呢位記者佢提及啦，咁當時我哋同事會唔會係處理緊一啲犯人嘅時候呢？係啦，咁難免我哋同事係會擔心，即係會再受到其他嘅暴徒嘅襲擊啦，甚至乎我哋都好常見到喺過去，尤其是過去呢幾個禮拜裏邊係有一啲搶犯嘅情況出現。咁所以可能當時我哋同事呢係需要真係要去有返一個安全距離，俾我哋嘅拘捕人員去作出拘捕。而我亦都聽到大家對於呢一個新嘅法例嘅關注。而頭先阿吳 Sir 亦都有講咗，其實喺呢一個嘅新嘅規例裏邊，所謂嘅一啲合理嘅辯解嘅內容係點樣樣？我諗呢個都好清晰。無論喺政府層面，或者喺我哋呢個記者會裏邊，我哋嘅同事亦都好清楚講咗，其實喺個豁免條款，即係喺個第4節裏邊嘅內容，係涵蓋到所有嘅專業記者嘅。咁但係我哋亦都要留心翻就係我諗我哋係絕對我哋同事啊，頭先阿吳 Sir 都有提過，法例只係生效咗4日，係啦，我哋都需要一啲嘅操作嘅磨合期。係啦，咁我哋會確保翻我哋同事對相關嘅合理辯解嘅章節呢，係會有一個更加清楚嘅認識。而另外頭先記者亦都有提及過，而我都相當之認同嘅就係，如果大家喺個工作期間係啦，可以有一啲譬如展示翻個記者證啊，或者其他嘢，可以減低喺個工作上邊有誤會嘅話呢，呢個我哋係歡迎嘅。係啦，因為始終喺呢段期間，我哋喺之前嘅記者會亦都有同大家提及過，就係喺我哋處理工作嘅時候，亦都有一啲一定唔係專業記者嘅人呢，就混入咗喺一啲記者群裏邊，而佢哋嘅衣着好多時係好難令我哋去分辨到究竟佢是定係否呢個專業記者嘅。係啦，咁所以我喺呢度係可以承諾，就係我哋會確保呢條新嘅規例，我哋同時係會對翻相關嘅合理辯解章節呢，係會更加清晰。希望喺個執行上邊，大家可以減少誤會。而我諗我哋都係冇一個意圖，希望喺個過程裏邊啊，令到邊一方面去受一啲無謂嘅苦嘅，好冇？咁跟住呢，我就會落去答第2條問題。咁啊，有關呢個荃灣嘅大河道嗰單嘅開槍事件啦。咁其實咧，我唔去重複翻當日嘅案情啦，因為上一次阿汪 Sir 亦都喺個記者會裏邊好清晰咁去講咗嗰個拘捕過程。咁我喺呢度可以斬釘截鐵咁樣去講，就係報道裏邊所提及嘅白色短棒，其實係一支白色嘅鐵通。咁而另外咧，就係我哋當時同時係處理緊一個有關 暴動同埋襲警嘅罪案現場。咁所以我哋當時嘅 CID 嘅同事係喺現場係處理咗一個嘅罪案現場，而檢走咗其實唔止呢支白色嘅鐵通，亦都唔止坊間所講嘅一支4尺長嘅鐵棒，未必係鐵棒，我知道，總之一支長嘅棍啦嚇，咩質地我暫時未有資料喺手。而另外亦都係執走咗一啲嘅浮板盾啊、磚頭啊，同埋其他鐵枝等等。因為我哋要喺呢個調查裏邊去證實嗰個係一個暴動嘅現場，而我哋從來係冇講過所有執到嘅證物都係屬於嗰位受槍傷嘅人士嘅。而另外我喺呢一度亦都可以講返個現實，就係嗰位嘅人士其實已經係俾我哋控告咗，而控告咗上法庭嘅案件，大家放心，所有嘅證物以至到嘅案情，將來會喺一個公開審訊裏邊全部呈現翻出嚟嘅，所以我哋係唔會做一啲即係一啲妨礙司法公正嘅行為。而另外，我亦都要提翻大家，就係當日其實就算係個傷者送走咗之後呢，其實暴徒係並冇離開到嘅。咁於是乎，我從我同事方面係得知，其實佢哋係好想更加詳細咁處理嗰個嘅罪案現場嘅。咁但係好可惜，跟住就有翻一班嘅暴徒出現，就向佢哋襲擊。咁於是乎，我哋同事呢，就只能夠盡快咁喺現場將一啲相信係與案有關嘅證物盡快執走咗，要離開，以免受到一啲暴徒嘅襲擊嘅。咁喺呢個問題，我大概係答咁多。
好。麻煩嗰個係咪 Sandy？ 係咪 Sandy？ 佢頭先舉手。
Hi, I have one question on three questions. One on the anti-mask law. Can I just ask, from an enforcement point of view, would you say from your initial assessment, would you say that the anti-mask law has helped police officers deal with protests, given that many people are out in the streets, or has it made it more difficult for you? My second question is, so far, based on the number of injuries and the type of injuries of your officers, what is the most serious? And retrospectively, would it be justifiable for police officers in those circumstances to fire to prevent those injuries? And my last question is, can I ask whether the Hong Kong Police Force has touched base with or exchanged views or information with PLA or your mainland counterparts regarding protests? And Mrs. Carrie Lam has also said that she doesn't rule out asking China for help, and if and when that happens, how ready is the force to work with China to deal with the protests? And also, what are the likely arrangements between both parties? Thank you.
Okay. For the first question, I will hand the floor to Mr. Ng, and I will answer the second question, and then I will hand over the floor to Mr. Kwok for the last question. Mr. Ng, please.
Thank you. As I mentioned in Cantonese, actually the police will welcome all the legislation or lawful measures which can help us to enforce the law, and the most important goal is to make Hong Kong peaceful again. So I think this is one that the law has just been enacted for less than 4 days. I think we still need time to improve on how it operates, or to collect views, or to see how it works. But I think definitely, if there's a law, I think it will help us.
For the second question, I do not have the accurate information in hand, but according to the past press conference, we have mentioned the following serious injury suffered by our officer, including one of our officers were kicked on his head, which caused a serious bone fracture at his face. And in another incident, our officers, as well as some reporters, were thrown with some corrosive liquid, which caused serious burns on his limb and as well as his body. And for the last example that I would like to quote is like the incident happened in the last weekend in Yunnan. in which one of our plainclothes constable who was thrown twice with petrol bombs. According to our guidelines and orders, whenever our officers encountered threats of serious bodily harm or bodily injuries or even life-threatening attack, we are justified to use our firearm. I think it is crystal clear that for the 3 examples that I have quoted previously are all justified incidents that we could use our firearm to stop this kind of seriously violent acts. And I'll hand forward to Mr. Kwok.
Thank you. According to the national law and the basic law, the authority to turn out the People's Liberation Army rests with the Central People's Government as well as the Hong Kong government. The Hong Kong police is both capable and determined to restore public safety and order. If you look at our track record, you will note that we have been capable of keeping Hong Kong's crimes under control, and the overall crime rate dropped to its lowest in 45 years last year. In fact, Hong Kong was ranked amongst the top 5 in the globe in terms of safety and security, according to some international studies. According to the World Economic Forum, Hong Kong was ranked number 6 globally in terms of reliability of police services. This shows that we are and have always been competent in keeping Hong Kong safe and stable. We are committed to performing our very best in containing the social unrest and helping Hong Kong to get back to normal. The past few weeks' unrest, we are facing unprecedented challenge. Shall I say we're facing a very formidable enemy. But we believe with the help from all sectors of the society, we will be able to deal with it by ourselves, by Hong Kong society, not by police alone, but by the Hong Kong society altogether. For that reason, I will leave the decision or any comment on the involvement of PLA back to our Hong Kong government, and we, as the police, will not comment further. Thank you.
信報啊，唔該。
喂，即係我想其實都想追翻頭先撈行家嘅問題，究竟即係其實當日記者有記者係被警員去扯面罩呢個行為，其實警方究竟係會唔會去道歉？佢覺得呢個行為其實可唔可以確明係咪一個合理合適嘅一個行為啦？跟住同埋就係想問翻究竟其實警方實際上嚟講蒙面法推出咗以嚟，其實你哋係點樣去同你哋前線嘅警員去講解，用咩方式？由邊個去做呢個講解嘅行為啦？點解即係如果你哋係有做到呢樣 briefing 嘅行為嘅話，其實點解前線仲會有扯面罩呢個行為出現啦？係啦，同埋就係點解都可以即係其實當然有片段亦都影到啊。即係警員話，即係記者係冇特權。其實係咪咁樣代表緊？究竟即係如果你哋有做 briefing 嘅話，其實究竟係咪個 briefing 係無效咧？呢個第一個問題。第二個問題係想問翻，即係近日即係都有一個傳言就話，即係琴日應該琴晚啦，係你哋係即係喺元朗就係即係拉咗一個戴咗口罩嘅一個休班嘅救援。咁其實嗰個救援嗰陣即係報稱，其實嗰陣時係唔舒服啦，咁所以要戴口罩。雖然佢身上係冇穿着任何嘅即係制服嗰樣嘢，咁但係其實佢個俾出嘅理由其實係算係一個合理嘅辯解。咁點解警方仲要即係去拘捕佢啦？同埋點解要去到即係佢做嘢嘅地方去大肆去搜查咧？係啦，想問翻個原因係乜嘢嘅？第三個問題就係喺10月1號嗰日，即係有人就即係影到就係警方係喺灣仔嗰度咧，就喺個天橋上面掟咗個垃圾桶落街。其實你哋之前喺8月中 嘅一個記者會嗰陣時，亦都有講過，就係當即係嗰陣時有示威者喺旺角喺天橋上面掟咗個垃圾桶落去警車上面。咁你哋嗰陣時形容嗰個行為係非常之危險，係可以有即係導致到一啲嘅致命嘅傷亡。咁其實究竟10月1嗰日警員點解要做呢個行為咧？係呢個嘅行為究竟係即係合唔合乎指引啦？同埋就係即係如果即係呢個掟垃圾桶落街嘅行為，即係好似你哋8月中嗰陣時講話係即係會有導致嚴重傷亡嘅時間。咁而家警方做係咪屬於雙重標準？唔該。
咁啊，有關第1同第2條同呢個蒙面法有關、反蒙面法有關嘅咧，我交俾阿吳翔。咁跟住咧，我就會去解答最後一條有關11嗰個事件嘅。咁首先我交俾阿吳翔。
好，唔該。咁首先講翻如果我哋去即係嘗試去俾啲意見嘅話，就我諗以個調查角度嚟講，咁我哋希望有個全面嘅調查，我哋應該要原則上就係應該審視所有嘅資料啊，因為每個人睇嘢個角度會唔同，資料會唔同啊，咁可能現場仲有啲咩人，咁即係類似咁嘅情況咧。咁喺有限嘅資料之後，我唔可以完全講當時實際嘅情況係點，因為我真係唔係現場。咁至於你講到就係話，條例本身其實而家頭先其實都開場白都講嘅就話，其實實施咗係即係好短時間啦。咁其實由實施當日，大家如果記得翻，即係回翻大家，其實3日都不斷有香港唔同各地都有唔同嘅即係公眾事件、暴力事件發生。咁其實要啲同事可以，我一般如果我哋有啲新，即係推出一個新法例唔係容易嘅嘢咧，咁呢個係比較少。咁我哋最好最完美嘅能夠可以揾啲同事可以坐喺度，有個我哋叫做訓練日，咁可以有啲咁嘅途徑去做啦。咁但係好可惜，過去呢週末呢3日，其實真係行動上係冇可能做到。咁所以咧，我哋咧我會答緊。咁所以咧，我哋會通過一啲內部嘅指引咧，就會傳訊翻俾有關嘅同事啦。最主要佢哋嘅同埋佢哋嘅團隊咯。咁亦都係講翻就係先頭講嘅就係因為呢條規例本身係新，但係規例裏邊嘅內容有啲嘅嘅原則咧，其實就唔係一啲新嘢，係一啲舊嘢嚟嘅。咁所以相信同事對於某啲內容咧係能夠會掌握到嘅。咁亦都係因為都係新啦，咁所以我都想繼續去問同事，即係攞多啲意見啊。咁亦都係即係歡迎其他意見。所有能夠令到即係我哋執行我哋嘅工作更加有效率嘅話，咁我哋都歡迎。
你估無效期幾耐啊？你估個無效期幾耐？
咁呢條問題而家係其他人問緊，咁我等翻阿江 Sir 繼續答翻呢個問題先。
我諗就住第一條問題，我哋係冇其他補充啦。咁跟住我會講講，其實當晚喺拘捕你哋所講嘅嗰位休班救護員咧，咁根據我資料顯示咧，其實當晚我哋同事係去附近咧，就去處理一啲頭先我哋喺開場嘅時候有提過一啲非法路障。咁而當時我哋去處理啲非法路障嘅時候咧，我哋喺附近咧就截查咗一啲嘅人士，而包括咗呢名人士。而我哋拘捕佢嘅罪名咧，就係呢一個新嘅規例裏邊嘅第5條，即係沒有遵從要求除去蒙面物品。咁所以根本上係唔存在佢當時有冇任何嘅合理辯解。而因為我哋當時同事去處理呢個事件嘅時候，唔知附近嘅人士係會唔會牽涉我頭先所講嘅呢個非法路障，所以於是咧，我哋係要求去做一個嘅截停嘅查問嘅。咁當時我哋同事係要求佢除去口罩，而佢係拒絕，所以我哋係拉咗呢個新嘅規例裏邊嘅第5條，即係話佢冇合理辯解底下應該咁講，我重複一次，係沒有遵從要求除去蒙面物品，係啦，所以係唔存在佢當時有冇病嘅，係啦。我哋同事其實當時係想確認佢嘅身份，係啦。就算佢俾咗身份證我哋，咁但係佢戴咗口罩或者有其他嘢蒙住塊面嘅時候，我哋又點能夠確認佢係咪嗰個人呢？咁所以我諗我哋呢度係要搞得好清楚嘅，係啦。咁至於我哋有冇去搜查佢嘅任何嘅辦公地點或者屋企嘅話呢，我諗呢啲係牽涉咗佢嘅一啲嘅私隱內容啦，我唔喺度作出一個嘅公開啦。咁而有關最後一條問題，即係喺呢個10月1號嗰個事件呢，咁我要講翻啦。其實當日呢，係喺軒尼詩道同埋灣仔附近一帶呢，係暴徒呢係設置咗大量嘅路障，同埋投擲汽油彈，同埋向我哋警察嘅防線呢投擲咗石頭同埋磚頭等等嘅硬物。 咁而當時呢，嗰個時候，根據我資料顯示呢，我哋同事喺附近係進行緊一啲嘅驅查行動，係啦。而你講嘅案發嘅地點呢，咁根據嗰個片段呢，我哋相信係灣仔嘅柯布連道嗰條嘅行人天橋，係啦。咁而當時我哋同事我哋確認我哋應該係有同事喺嗰度執行緊職務嘅。係啦，咁但係究竟當時喺橋上邊或者橋下邊有冇其他嘅封鎖呢？咁呢度呢，我亦都要再作深入了解。咁而根據網上呢個片段呢，我係同意嘅。如果係由行人天橋上邊咁樣去掉一個垃圾桶落去呢，呢個係一個好危險嘅動作。如果有人經過嘅話呢，係會好有機會呢係造成一啲好嚴重嘅傷害嘅。咁所以呢，我哋係會去了解翻呢件事情。咁如果咧，我哋係證實到同事真係有作出相關行為咧，我哋係會嚴肅跟進嘅。咁我答唔答？
翻少少嘢㗎，即係包括就係即係嗰個即係訓練嗰樣嘢上面啦。咁其實即係如果你當警員，其實你都話即係可能係即係喺執行嗰個禁蒙面法上面嘅一啲行動上面，可能你都需要時間磨合。咁其實而家警方係做緊嘅行動上面，其實係咪諗住係用一個原則，就係話即係我見到又可以就拉晒先咧？唔係佢真係睇清楚究竟嗰個狀況係點樣咧？或者係都係想問翻嘅就係即係嗰個掉垃圾桶嗰個位置，其實即係如果你話去追究，其實你哋而家知道嗰個警員，即係咪可以揾得到嗰個警員名？即係定還是你哋都係要等個人報到，即係投訴你先至會去主動調查？警方會唔會主動咁去作出一個內部嘅調查咧？
係，我諗就住反蒙面法嗰度啦，我哋都冇特別補充嘅。咁而其實咧，我哋每日同事喺開工之前咧，係啦，我哋都會有一啲嘅，我諗大家可能平時叫 briefing 啦，我哋叫做一啲更前嘅一啲訓示啦，係啦。咁我哋其實頭先阿吳 Sir 亦都有提及過嘅，法例只係推出咗4日。咁所以咧，其實我哋係除咗磨合之外咧，我哋亦都係會不停咁樣去了解翻究竟喺嗰個嘅實際操作上邊有啲咩可以改善，又或者係實際操作上邊我哋有啲咩要配合，咁先可以咧提高到我哋去執行呢個法律方面嘅效率嘅，係啦。咁所以呢個可以放心。其實你哋今日喺記者會裏邊提及嘅一啲嘅有關呢個反蒙面法方面嘅一啲執行嘅話咧，其實我哋都會翻去咧，都會同翻我哋行動方面嘅同事咧，會作出一啲嘅適當嘅訓示嘅。而有關你頭先講10月1號嗰個事件啦，係你講嘅其實我頭先都講漏咗嘅，係啦。如果當日喺現場見到事件發生嘅，係啦，我哋都即係希望佢可以出嚟，係啦，無論係作出投訴也好，或者係提供資料俾我哋，咁等我哋可以作出一個跟進。咁我係咁講。
主動去調查。
我頭先有提及過，其實我哋係會主動去了解嘅，係啦。
好 ，Alfred。
RTHK English News. First question on the anti-mask law. Can you promise that reporters won't be asked to remove masks or will be arrested at the protest scenes in future, especially after tear gas are released? And you mentioned that this is such a short law. So why are officers taking such a long time, and why are they still so unfamiliar with this law? And are officers basically abusing this new power you have, or are you slapping John Lee, your superior, in the face? How long will it take before you guys are familiar with the law that you are enforcing? Second question, you have condemned protesters for taking the law into their own hands and basically attacking people. But your officers were filmed kicking a man in his chest and also striking his back with fists multiple times when they make an arrest in Jean-Paul Kong. So that seems to have gone beyond basically subduing the man. And yesterday, a police car deliberately drove into a crowd of protesters. Can you please explain these two incidents to us? Third question, can you explain the incident in which riot police rushed into a mall despite being barred from security guards? And I'm protesting here because you mentioned this in your opening remarks in Chinese, but didn't in English, and you spent time talking about information you said in your previous statement, and we much prefer that you don't do that in future. Thank you.
Okay. For the first question relating to the new legislation, I will hand the floor to Mr. Ng, and then I will answer the rest of the questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. As mentioned in Cantonese before, actually in the ordinance itself, there's a statute section regarding the defense. So maybe I just repeat a little bit to make it more clear. So the defense is a defense for a person charged with an offense under this section. That means wearing a mask at those unlawful or regulated events to establish that at the time of the alleged offense, the person had lawful authority or reasonable excuse. So following on in subsection 2, it mentioned that a patient is taken to have established that she had reasonable excuse, I would say, for using face covering if there's sufficient evidence to raise an issue and the contrary is not proved. And lastly, is the person was engaged in a profession or employment and was using that covering for physical safety. So the keywords should be profession and employment and physical safety. So I think the law is not written as it mentioned like it cannot cover all the occupations or what. But I think this is in principle. So it mentions about the profession and employment. And in our view, reporters, genuine reporters doing genuine reporting at the scene will be covered. Okay. My answer to that is that police will abide to the law and we will act according to the law. We cannot give any promise out with the law. So we will just act according to the law.
And why are police officers still so unfamiliar with this short law? That was also my question.
As mentioned before, the law has just been enacted for less than 4 days. And I think even for ourselves, even for all the citizens in Hong Kong, we need time. So that's why we make use of this opportunity to try to explain a little bit more so that everybody will get more familiarized with it.
And I personally think that it is unfair to comment that the law is simple because it has only a few sections. Because I have seen a lot of examples in which different legislations will be discussed and argued, even to the Court of Final Appeal, which is a very complicated process. So I do not want to comment whether a particular legislation is simple or not. And for the second question about the incident happened in Sampo Kong on the 6th of October. Actually, in that afternoon, a group of over 200 protesters, most of them are wearing in black, gathered outside King Fuk Street and Prince Edward Road East, during which they are shouting, blocking the roads, and also acting disorderly. And during the arrest, police chased after over 10 protesters and eventually intercept one of them. And during our arrest, this male had put up the serious struggle in which he resists our officers to handcuff him. So in the process, our officer had used minimum force to subdue him so that we could handcuff this arrested person and to have total control of him. Because as I have mentioned numerous times, during the past few weeks, we encounter a number of occasions in which when our officers were making arrests, the other protesters or rioters intervene and try to attack our officers and try to obstruct our officers to execute their duty to subdue different arrested persons. And for this particular case, actually, we have received 2 complaints regarding the use of force in this incident, and we will follow up this complaint. About the last question on the entrance.
The police car incident I also mentioned in my second question.
For this one, I do not have any information in hand, or maybe you could put up your question through newsroom, or you could enlighten me with some more details, or otherwise I better answer the last question first. And for the last question about the incident happened last night in Ma On Shan at a shopping mall. Actually, police received reports about that someone make damages to the shops in this shopping mall, as well as to the Ma On Shan MTR station facilities. Responding to these police calls, our officers actually intend to enter this shopping mall as well as to access to the MTR station so as to respond to the 999 call. However, during the process, the security guard of this shopping mall stopped us from entering this shopping mall. And I have to reiterate here about the statutory power given to the police for the entrance of these kinds of venues. It is under the Chapter 233, the Police Force Ordinance, Laws of Hong Kong, actually under the Section 50, in particular, subsection 3 and 4. If our police officer reasonably believe that somebody who will be arrested are inside any particular venue, we have the statutory power to enter this venue to effect the arrest, no matter we have an arrest warrant or not. And I think that's all I would like to talk about for this question. I think this is appropriate for me to watch the video at this occasion. Maybe we could answer this question in our next press conference.
好，今日最後兩位，呢位男士前排。
First of all, are there any police officers from the mainland China or members of the People's Armed Police working as part of the Hong Kong police force in Hong Kong? And second of all, Mr. Ng said that in a perfect world, officers would have undergone a training day in regards to this new mask law. Are you suggesting that your officers are currently undertrained in handling this new law? You previously mentioned that in a perfect world, officers would have undergone a training day regarding the new law. So are you now suggesting that officers are undertrained in handling this new law?
Okay, thanks for the question. For the first question, I will hand over the floor to Mr. Kwok, and then Mr. Ng will answer the question about the new legislation.
Well, let me categorically tell you that there is absolutely no truth in any allegation or accusation of the PLA being inside the police force. We don't need that, and we will not need that. It hasn't happened. So that is absolutely not true. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mentioned before that this new regulation is relatively short in length, and most of the ideas were making reference to the existing public order ordinance, which a lot of police officers are familiarized with. And that's why we think that they will grab hold of the ideas or the crux of the new legislation, a new regulation. And but as I think this is common or natural that for any new legislation or new thing, none of our officers or none of everyone here has any experience on it. So I think in the beginning we do need time to study more or to understand more. And also, if there's any comments from our officers or from others, then we'll of course take into consideration. The ultimate aim is to facilitate our execution of the duties, and also to avoid any misunderstanding. And the most importantly is the purpose of this legislation is not about this is not targeting any occupation or any profession, and this is targeting and those violent protesters who are making use of covering their face and do all the violent acts, and to stop or try to prevent the police from identifying them. I think this is the crux of the issue that we need to address.
最後一題。
Maybe let me supplement a bit for the question asked by the CNN. Actually, I have mentioned in my answer through Cantonese that actually, apart from the formal training that we would arrange to our officers, actually, please rest assured that we will try our best to make continuous improvement to execute this new regulation through our daily briefing or debriefing before and after our every operation.
我諗咁樣，今日最後一題啊，原本就最後一題㗎啦嘛。後邊係咪 AM730咪佢就 AM730啦。
只不過半個鐘問答喎，郭 Sir。
你哋6日冇開 PC 啦，已經有好多。
即係會唔會過半個鐘頭啦？而家輪到 AM730，好嘛？我哋輪到 AM730好嘛？唔該。
係唔該其實你哋啱講咗，其實由蒙面法推行至今已經有77個即係被捕人士係俾人用呢個法例去拘捕啦。但係啱啱有提及到，其實係前線又話要多啲去指引啊，即係其實代表你哋前線都未必完全知道呢條法例嘅時候，但係已經有77個被捕人士因為呢條法例去被捕，咁。當中會唔會即係點樣去確保你哋當中係即係你哋同事係清楚了解到呢個法例先去進行一個執法咧？另外就係想講翻琴晚，因為一啲嘅網上片段咧，咁就見到喺紅磡發生嘅，咁就有見到你哋其中有一班同事咧，咁就同一啲嘅即係可能喺黃埔附近嘅一啲嘅居民去有啲口角啦，繼而見到其中一位警員咧，佢係拔咗槍嘅。咁我想問翻當時究竟係發生咗啲乜嘢情況，令到嗰位警員係需要去拔槍警告即係可能發生口角呢個情況咧？唔該。
咁有關嘅反蒙面法方面咧，就我會交俾阿吳 Sir 去答啦。咁跟住我就會講紅磡嗰個事件嘅。唔該。
好多謝。咁其實呢條蒙面法就頭先都講咗，咁我好簡單就 recap 翻就係話內容法例嘅精神，其實同事不嬲都有做開，即係公安條例裏邊嘅內容。咁咧就但係當然每條新嘅法例，咁啊亦都會即係可能有啲地方同事會唔清晰啊。咁我哋都會即係經過唔同嘅途徑去解釋俾同事知啦，亦都經過呢啲途徑解釋俾公眾啊或者記者知道啦。咁法例寫得係清晰嘅，其實即係如果大家有睇過啦，咁或者即係法例，sorry 唔好意思啊。法例嘅條文係清晰嘅，即係亦都簡短。即係如果大家想清楚多啲，其實喺保安局個網站咧都有啲資料咧，其實都比較易明白嘅。咁我答緊啦，唔該晒，多謝。咁咧而家就話如果所以我頭先因為講緊呢個法例公安條例裏邊嘅內容，同時都係執行開咁同時係會熟悉嘅。咁當然如果佢遇到一啲問題啊，亦都我哋需要係揾啲機會去收集多啲意見。咁我哋最希望就係做到可以即係繼續去做好啲，繼續做好啲咯。
咁其實就住第一條問題啦，我之前喺英文嘅答案裏邊都有提及過啦。我諗所有新嘅法例或者規例裏邊呢，我哋嘅處理除咗係我哋行動上嘅處理之外啦，其實都包括咗我哋之後要檢控上法庭嘅一啲嘅程序嘅，係啦。咁而其實你話一啲無論新嘅法例或者舊嘅法例，到最後上到上訴庭或者去到終審法院嗰度，係喺個法官嗰度係有一啲嘅對相關法例有一啲更加深入嘅演繹咧，咁其實呢啲係真係需要時間嘅。咁但係咧就正如頭先阿吳 Sir 所講啦，其實我哋初步睇咧就條例內容係清晰嘅。咁所以我哋同事喺執行方面咧，其實喺個拘捕嗰度咧，其實係就係有呢個嘅呢個第3節同埋第5節裏邊嘅內容係啦。咁而家我哋係根據嗰個法例裏邊嘅字眼去執行翻嘅法例，所以係唔存在話我哋同事喺唔清晰嘅情況下作出拘捕嘅。咁啊跟住頭先你所提及喺紅磡發生嗰個事件啦，咁根據我手頭上嘅資料咧，就其實喺琴晚9點鐘左右啦，就有一批嘅人士啦，就喺德民街附近咧就設置一啲路障啦，同埋去刑事毀壞附近嘅一啲港鐵站嘅設施嘅。咁於是乎咧，我哋同事係需要喺嗰附近咧就進行一個嘅掃蕩行動。咁跟住去到大概晚上嘅11點左右啦，咁雖然我哋掃蕩完之後咧，咁嗰啲嘅示威者咧或者暴徒咧，亦都係再次出現啦，就喺附近設置路障。咁所以我哋同事要翻轉頭咧，再進行另一轉嘅行動嘅。 係啦，咁而你所講嘅情況啦，咁當時咧就我哋同事咧就面對一大批嘅暴力示威者啦，係啦，咁而當中咧就我哋處理完之後咧，其實我哋同事係準備就離開，係啦，咁但係咧過程裏邊，我哋嘅警車咧不停咁樣俾暴徒用磚頭啦、玻璃樽等硬物咧就投擲嘅，咁於是乎咧就我哋同事咧就決定落翻車去驅散呢一班嘅暴徒。咁我哋同事行對行路嘅時候咧，咁啲暴徒咧仍然係不停咁樣咧向我哋同事係投擲一啲嘅雜物，咁同埋咧亦都係圍埋嚟我哋同事嗰度嘅。咁當時我哋同事就覺得咧，就被一大班人圍住咧，就有機會咧就會對同埋繼續去掉一啲硬物嘅時候咧，會對我哋嘅同事咧就好有機會會身體咧受到嚴重嘅傷害。咁所以咧，於是乎咧，佢當時係有將佢嘅配槍咧就掹咗出嚟嘅。咁但係咧就冇指向任何人，就指向地下嘅啫。咁與此同時咧，我哋亦都有同事咧就喺現場咧使用咗呢個胡椒噴霧，係啦，咁亦都成功咧就令到最接近佢哋嘅一批暴力示威者咧就散去。咁當呢一個嘅危險係冇咗之後咧，我哋同事就將佢嘅配槍咧就放翻入去嘅槍袋裏邊。咁我諗嗰個事件內容就係咁多。
好，今日記者會完畢啦，唔該晒，多謝各位。記者會已經完畢啦，唔該晒。
我哋6月已經俾咗問題你，點解你冇答過我哋嘅？嗰啲警車去過鳳攸北街，究竟條街去咗邊度？有冇任何嘅交代？因為咁多市民喺度，可唔可以講幾句郭 Sir？你係元朗警區元朗警區嘅上層，你可以知道當日發生咩事㗎嘛？郭 Sir， 你出嚟唔係淨係講一個開場白啫嘛，係嘛？郭 Sir，
問可唔可以答埋印尼記者打橫嗰度，你做一手證？
郭 Sir， 你元朗嗰度你嘅角色係咩？郭 Sir， 郭 Sir。
你嗰日喺邊啊？721隊啊？
又幫唔到同事爭取到個。你要早啲頭先起身啦，點知撞得同事啊？怪得知元朗係咁嘅結果啦。佢個樣俾人個收成好靚嘅就，簡直就好似樹多苗嚟嘅，嗰隻樹啊，白衣人。